Good afternoon and welcome. There are some seats down here if you want to come down. Is this there? Is that better? Okay. There are seats down here if you want to come down. I wish none of us were here today, but we are. And we come and remember and pay tribute to Bill Remmers. And we come to show our love to Ruth and Juliet and to each other. This is not a party. We can cry if we need to, but we can also smile and even laugh as we remember Bill. So let us begin. I have known Bill for almost 20 years, and he always told me he had cancer. Over the years, he was so vibrant, and he went through numerous kinds of treatment, and he always seemed to beat it, so that I always thought and hoped that he would continue to beat it. His decline and his death came as a shock to me, and I'm sure it did to many of you. But I believe that Bill still lives. All major religions have some kind of belief in life after death. Some believe in heaven. Some believe in some kind of hell or punishment. Some believe in a purgatory until Judgment Day. Some believe in reincarnation until nothingness or nirvana is reached. Some believe the spirits continue being visible on Earth. Many physicists believe that energy is never destroyed and continues. And this is what Bill seemed to believe. He heard this reading written by Sarah Robinson, and he thought it was wonderful, and he wanted it read at his service. I don't believe in heaven, at least not the kind I hear people talking about. I don't believe that heaven is a place in the clouds. So when I say Bill went to heaven, I only say it for lack of a better term. I believe in energy. I believe that when we die, our atoms are recycled across the universe and become new things. I believe that energy can never be destroyed. I think parts of Bill became the tail of a comet flying millions of light years away. I think parts of Bill became dust on a moon in a distant galaxy. I think parts of Bill became a water molecule floating around in the Pacific. Maybe even parts of Bill became parts of a baby being born right now. All of those places are his heavens. All of those places are his afterlives. Bill isn't gone, he just spread out. He outgrew his body. You can't imagine Bill spreading out anymore, can you? He outgrew his body, thought he'd try infinity on for size. Energy can't be destroyed. So that means our energy was here before we were. Our atoms had lives before us. So to them, we are the afterlife. To them, we are heaven. Heaven isn't just a place in the clouds. Heaven is all around us. We don't walk on earth only to mysteriously march into the afterlife. We walk in both places simultaneously. Many of Bill's friends are sharing here today, music and talking and readings. And so let us now hear from his friends, and we'll start with Ardys.
Thank you. I told Bill I'd write him a song, and it took me forever. I wrote about 4 or 5 different songs, and none of them gelled. Finally, I called this it, and he got to hear it. I'm so pleased. Our Bill Remmers wasn't such a regular guy. He could spin you a story quick as a cat could blink an eye. And if you had a question, he's the one to tell you why. And he would sip a pot of coffee until it was totally dry. Oh, we loved our Bill every morning, noon, and night. He was our dancing fool when the stars were shining bright. He loved a happy crowd and his Java just right. So we're singing this song, but don't do it wrong, 'cause it's for our Bill. Now our Bill Remmers met a pretty girl one spring. Ruthie is a winner, she really made him sing. Just as smart as he is, she appeared to have some wings. And though we had a lot of answers, she taught that boy some things. Yes, we love our Bill every morning, noon, and night. He was our dancing fool when the music was right. He loved a happy crowd and his Java just right. So we're singing our song. We won't take long, 'cause it's for our Bill. Well, those two got together, made themselves a child. Oh, she got her mama's big blue eyes for to drive somebody wild. Hanging with her papa, prompted patient style. She's a scholar and a dancer, and in her graceful manner, art and science reconcile. Oh, we just see our Bill with these good women by his side. He's got a great big smile he doesn't try to hide. And if you asked your question, the answer might have took some time. But a better story winder will never take you for a ride. Yes, we love our Bill every morning, noon, and night. He's been our dance and thrill when the stars were shining bright. Part of a loving crowd, he liked his Java just right. So we're singing this song, hope I didn't do it wrong, 'cause it's for our Bill Remmers.
Do some of you want to come down here? You're timid? Ron Shore, where are you?
It's much cooler down here.
Okay.
When Ruth asked me to say a few words, she didn't give me any guidelines, and actually the first thing that came to my mind was Bill and Bernoulli's principle. And I'm going to focus on a brief moment that is typical of Bill Remmers. It occurred in 1981, and Bill and I had found memories of the experience. It was a time when we enjoyed good health, lots of energy, relative maturity. 1980 was an important year for me. I joined the KU Sailing Club, and my acquaintance with fellow member Bill Remmers grew into a fast friendship. We were older than most of the members. We became sailing partners, competed in races with the club's dilapidated fleet of Flying Juniors, which are small two-sail boats. In 1981, we hitched one of the club's FJs to my equally dilapidated 63 Plymouth Valiant and took off to Colorado, chugging over the Continental Divide, and arrived at the Regional Flying Junior Championships, Rudy Reservoir, a beautiful mountain lake near Basalt. This was a regatta that attracted novice and expert sailors, including the U.S. champion, from all parts of the country. As soon as we set our tent up, Bill started exploring, wandering about, and visiting with the other campers, as is Bill. Sailing was a stimulating sport for Bill. He An empiricist and took pleasure in testing the laws of physics. He was also a serious and very competitive sailor. He approached sailing scientifically. To Bill, sailing meant optimizing the boat's behavior, adjusting to changing wind conditions, and strategizing like playing a game of chess. He viewed sailing as an application of Bernoulli's principle. The sail is comparable to an airplane's wing, and the air flowing across the sail lifts the boat forward like a plane is lifted into the air. Proper trimming of the sails, adjusting the boat angle to the wind, and awareness of wind changes optimizes the performance of the boat. And Bernoulli's principles has many, many applications, from carburetors, airplanes, boats, to those little things you pour wine through to aerate it. Bill was a good sailor. At the regionals, Bill was captain, handling the mainsail and rudder, and I was the crew, handling the jib sail and watching the changes in the wind. In the last of the races, we were doing very well and were on a broad reach when the wind shifted violently and swung the sail around, lifting the rear of the boat out of the water and ripping the rudder off the boat. Miraculously, we weren't injured. I had a wetsuit borrowed from a sail member who was about my size, but Bill didn't have one, and he got pretty chilled in the cold mountain water. When we got back to the shore, Bill knew just where to find the two most attractive women in the camp and got them to laughingly share body heat in our tent to treat his hypothermia. He regretted that they wouldn't agree to skin contact, but he did recover happily. At Rudy, Bill's expertise guided us to a second-place finish in the B class, which amazed both of us because the boat broke down before the end of the final race, but we had enough points to do that. Typically, Bill made new friends at Rudy, finding common ground to talk and laugh about. As always, doing things with Bill was an adventure. I talked nature and biology, and he talked everything else. As captain of our boat, Bill received a small loving cup as an award for our achievement. A few weeks later, he surprised me with a device called a Marlin spike, engraved Ron Shore, 2nd B Crew, Flying Junior Midwest Regional Regatta. He felt that I should have a memento too. I treasure this gift mainly because of his thoughtfulness. And then it occurred to me that one of the really great things about Bill is graciousness. He just smoothly did things for people, didn't expect anything of it, and it meant so much to other people. And when I think about the many applications of Bernoulli's principle, I always think of Bill, his fresh enthusiasm, his curiosity, his perspective, his constant search for meanings, and especially his love and generosity.
Dinner?
I came to Lawrence in summer of 1971 and ran into Bill within a few days. Coincidences have brought two of us together. For those of you who don't believe in coincidence, perhaps you can say It was the universe. In 1976, my father died. I had a difficult upbringing with my father. He loved me a lot. So did I. The relationship was very difficult. Bill was my best friend. He filled many roles. He was a friend, a brother, and at times he was father. Most of the times we were good friends. At times I defied him. But we always had good conversations. In fact, I believe it was just one conversation that lasted 40-odd years. It was interrupted countless times. There was a continuity. My father died. I started composing a song. I never finished it until this week. Earlier this week, I finally finished that piece. It's a simple piece I would like to play.
Shelley? Why don't you come over here? It's smoother.
My name is Shelley Rosenfeld, daughter of Howard and Beverly Rosenfeld, and my family and I have known Bill since I was a kiddo. Born and grew up here and have lived almost all my life in Lawrence. My dad, who was professor of psychology and human development at the University of Kansas, was Bill's dissertation advisor. Over the years, they became less teacher, mentor, and student, and progressively mutually teachers, students, and inspirations to each other and dear pals. Everyone here loves Bill so much. I think I can confidently say that to each of us, he was meaningful in multiple, multifaceted ways. He was vivacious, boisterous, thoughtful, intellectual, caring, kind, pensive, occasionally long-winded, but in a good way. Truly larger than life, and his heart was just as big, welcoming and holding dear those he knew and loved through good and tough times. His mind was equally limitless and accomplished. He was kind of a Renaissance man, albeit one in festive bright suspenders and a bolo tie. And may I say, no one could wear a bolo like Bill could. What I want to share today is how people impact and become part of our childhoods and beyond, and more specifically, some thoughts about how Bill, through his long-time relationship with our family, became a resonating part of mine. Bill earned his PhD in 1985. The title of his dissertation was An Interactive Microcomputer Program for the Disambiguated Analysis of Lag Relationships Between Discrete Behavioral Events. Now, I will be the first to admit that this subject is not my forte. As a young adult, I'm sure I found it baffling, and okay, do now as well. But I will also say that Bill shared plenty that helped make sometimes difficult concepts palatable, accessible, and relatable. Indeed, his voice, both physically as well as conceptually, that is, the way he thought and spoke up, the issues and topics and feelings he gave voice to, affected us all in varying ways. Whether animated and full of laughter, or pondering a thought-provoking idea, his voice was uniquely identifiable even when he was out of sight range. Whether he walked into our house, was in the bookstore, or coffee shop. I can hear the timbre of his voice even still. He had a seemingly endless store of knowledge and creative problem-solving abilities, all generously shared, as was his ever-ready, embracing smile. And his enthusiasm could be infectious. Ask Bill anything and he had an answer, or would go research it and tell you the next time he saw you, such as his theory about a weird knocking noise my car in high school made, but only sporadically, which he correctly diagnosed, and this was reinforced by the mechanic as a small hole in the exhaust that got louder when jostled. I was very intrigued by this, both the mysteries of the car and Bill's knowledge of the mysteries of the car. Now, in their sometimes divergent, sometimes converging interests and pursuits of knowledge, and in their friendship, my dad and Bill were great foils and complements. Dad, as I mentioned, Bill, as I mentioned, so vivacious, sometimes boisterous, so outgoing. My dad, a little quieter, more introverted, and more private, but with subtle wit. Both delighted in research, analysis, exploring, discussing, and banter, and the occasionally slightly risque joke. My dad had many colleagues, friends, and students he adored and admired, but what I want to highlight here is how much my dad admired and respected Bill, and how Bill became even more a part of the fabric of my youth. Way back when I was an undergrad college student attending a small liberal arts school up north, I decided that I did not want or need to be in college and wanted to drop out. I was more interested in playing in punk bands, writing poetry, and becoming an auto mechanic. I did not feel academia enabled this, and that college was detrimental to my development and my creative side. Now, my dad passed away not so long ago, and while it's been hard, I am fortunate to have many letters he wrote me through the years, and have found comfort, inspiration, and sometimes been amused in his fatherly writings. In one, my dad responded to my aforementioned assertion that the best thing for me was to leave school and learn from life experience. I had argued that experiencing life was more useful than learning facts and figures, which is how I viewed college then. Dad, while acknowledging my reasoning had some merit, wanted to offer another way of looking at and considering things. This is an excerpt from that letter Dad wrote me at the time. One of the things that stands out is that Dad mentioned Bill specifically as example of integrating and initiating life learning and school learning and the value of both. I do not think Dad would mind me sharing this, and the excerpt is this, quote, "Now, I know a lot of people I admire who have developed substantially outside the college track. College does have its, quote, little boxes, unquote, drawback. It is authoritarian in many ways. As you," that is me, Shelley, "well noted, colleges tend to throw it at, down you, and require you to throw it back, up. Many bright people prefer to self-initiate, and some do it quite well. For example, consider Remmers, who knows more than most of us, simply due to his dedication to learning, most of which he initiates on his own. He is in school again because he believes he needs credentials to get a good position where he will have opportunities to work on interesting problems with reasonable support and autonomy." I think what my dad meant, and what I took away from this, is that Bill was authentically integrating both academic learning and pursuits and life learning, and that both endeavors were worthy and rewarding, and, importantly, not mutually exclusive. He admired Bill's passion for knowledge, learning and doing new things, and applying these in myriad ways, whether in scientific, technological research and contributions, or in creative, more personal endeavors. My dad's advice, and Bill by example, made a significant impact. For example, I think Dad and Bill were both pleased when I later became the first woman to wear a uniform and work on the shop floor, rather than in the office at Jiffy Lube here in Lawrence, while getting my master's in English and creative writing. To be sure, for my dad and for me, and likely for many of us here, Bill exemplified not only the concept and importance of lifelong authentic learning and sharing it with others, but integrity. When thinking about Bill, the word synergy is apt here, I believe. We sometimes hear it used in the corporate or motivational speaking worlds. It is kind of a buzzword at times. But I think Bill embodied what synergy can mean in diverse and rewarding ways. The connectedness between people, concepts, science, and nature, the balance and inspiration, the tension, collaboration, and resolution that can create or lead to harmony or spark imagination and productivity in life, relationships, intellectual pursuits. And why and how this matters in ways great or small. Atoms collide, nature and the universe hold secrets that beg to be explored, and mysteries progressively unfold and reveal, often in tandem with others. And when hearts, minds, and people connect, the outcome can be amazing, transformative, capable of producing not only change, but love. Although my dad cannot be here, yet I feel his presence. My mom, Beverly, and my sister, Jessica, are here, and my sister, Lisa, sending wishes from Arizona, and my husband, Jeff Kaur, all celebrate and commemorate Bill's longtime, lively, supportive, and loving friendship. And so, Bill, thank you for coming into and being in our lives. Thank you for bringing your lovely wife, Ruth, and delightful daughter, Juliet, into our lives. Thank you for giving us much to aspire to, and by your example, inspire our continued exploration and appreciation of the wonder of the known and the unknown, whether people, places, or ideas. We love and miss you deeply.
Bill loved people. Bill loved astronomy. And Bill loved math. Put him together with all three at once, and he was in heaven. While I was conversant in math, meaning that I could follow and appreciate his pursuit of geometric constructions and proofs, it was astronomy that we would inevitably gravitate toward, like comets to a star. I not only liked to talk anything astronomical with Bill, I also happened to have a telescope and dark skies. So he frequented my place by himself, and often with Ruth and Juliet in tow, or with other friends to watch lunar eclipses, planetary transits, gazing at meteor showers all night long on mattresses or lounge chairs, or looking for hours at a large disk of Mars during a particularly favorable opposition. The verb to consider literally refers to gazing at the stars, and our conversations seemed to flow more effortlessly in all directions under the influence of celestial bodies on those nights. For Bill was a man of ideas. He was also a joyful empiricist who loved to poke and tickle reality to see what kind of reactions he could get. If he found an exciting idea, he would not just be content with it, rather he mixed it into his cauldron of other ideas and experiences to see how it would interact and transform, like a pinch of some subtle herb into a vegetarian stew, or a new pigment into a raku glaze. Because of this, it was always fun to bring newfound objects to Bill, partly to share my own excitement, but also to see it catch fire in his mind and watch what would happen to it when he threw it into his cauldron. I remember one time I was helping to organize an international bioregional congress in the Flint Hills and came to Bill to discuss the possibility of using locally dug clay to fashion and fire a turtle figurine for each participant to wear as a kind of a totem necklace during the week-long event. Bill didn't miss a beat, quickly recounting stories from his own life where he had found various clay outcrops with various consistencies and his experience refining it, what characteristics to look for, and before you know it, we were searching for appropriate seams of clay in the hill where I live, helping sift out impurities and screening, drying, and wetting it until I had a clay that, with the collaborative genius of Ardys Ramberg, who came up with a design mold and firing kiln, resulted in a unique, beautiful, and locally made token of this area for participants to take home with them. Like the North Star Polaris, one constant point of orientation in the unfathomable reality of the universe for Bill was a deep and binding love of history and the stories of insight that aggregated together into knowledge. These stories were not dry, memorized facts for Bill, whether they were living lessons that Bill took great pleasure climbing around in order to personally experience those aha moments himself, and sometimes even noticing new wrinkles of understanding missed by those who went before him. For instance, he delighted in the mathematical mettle of Aristarchus, one of his heroes who in 250 BC determined the sun to be the center of the solar system some 1700 years before Copernicus. I remember having a discussion with Bill about one of Aristarchus's hypotheses, where he estimated the distance between the sun and the earth by precisely observing the moon and its relation to the sun in the sky. Aristarchus made the geometric deduction that at the precise moment of the first quarter moon, i.e. when the face of the moon is exactly 50% lit, the Earth-Moon-Sun angle was exactly 90 degrees, while the Moon-Earth-Sun angle would be slightly less than that. By precisely measuring that second angle and calculating the resultant triangle, Aristarchus surmised the distance from the Earth to the sun using the moon's distance from the Earth as the unit of measure. Aristarchus did not have a very precise measuring tool to do this, leaning more heavily on mathematical intuition than empirically precise data, and estimated the difference between the two angles to be 3 degrees, concluding that the sun was 18 to 20 times further away from the Earth than was the moon. As impressive as that was for the time, since it was something that nobody had realized before, Bill was sorely disappointed that Aristarchus hadn't been more precise in his observations, as the actual angle, instead of 3 degrees, is less than 1/2 of 1 degree. Bill thought that Aristarchus should have been able to measure that small amount of an angle more accurately, coming much closer to the true distance to the sun as a result, which is some 390 times further away than the moon is from the Earth. Bill discussed ways he thought Aristarchus could have come up with a more refined angle measurement that would have resulted in his better appreciating how really huge astronomical distances are. I argued that Aristarchus's heliocentric conclusions had been ignored by most of the inheritors of knowledge anyway, so even if he could have come up with more precise conclusions about the vastness of the universe, that probably would have been ignored too. But sure, what the heck? Why not think about recreating this experiment? Like many projects that characterize Bill's keen intellect, much of the pleasure was derived from toying with the idea of doing something like this, even if the actual project never came to final fruition. Fast forward to a couple of weeks ago. In the waning hours of what turned out to be the last day of Bill's life, I spent a few hours with Juliet by his bedside while Ruth took a nap. Most of the time I spent there was spent quietly visiting with Juliet, helping make Bill as comfortable as I could, positioning him in bed, keeping his lips moist, helping Juliet greet and visit last-minute visitors who came by until the very end. I left before Bill, surrounded by a circle of friends and family, slipped away for good. When Ruth called me to tell me of his passing, I came back into town after taking a shower from working outdoors, not being able to sleep anyway. After hanging out a bit more with Ruth and Juliet, I went back home, and I noticed that the moon sure looked like it was first quarter moon. And sure enough, I looked it up. Bill's passing happened almost exactly at the best possible time to make those measurements we had talked about. In the last hours of Bill's life, the first quarter moon was around 25 degrees east of south, and the sun was just a few degrees north of west. This position puts the sun and the moon well above the horizon, where an ideal measurement as free of distortion from the atmosphere would have been possible. I can see you, Bill, in your moments before death, floating up, gazing at this configuration, recognizing that this would allow accurate measurements of those critical angles in the sky we talked about. and with a clear-eyed, satisfied understanding where instruments were no longer necessary to discern what had eluded Aristarchus, let go and merge with the music and dance that is the universe. Be well, Bill. I'll see you whenever I turn my gaze upwards toward the sky.
Carl?
First, I want to thank everyone for being here. I know it means a lot to Juliet and Ruth. Your presence means a lot to people. In my home, there's a lot of reminders of my very best friend. Music instruments that he helped me build. Ceramic pots I eat from. A few years ago, I had gone to a concert at the Lead Center of Japanese drummers. And the day afterwards, I was talking to Bill, and I told him that I felt like I needed bigger drumsticks like those Japanese guys had. Of course, 2 days later, he called me up and he had the sticks for me. In those years since he gave me these sticks, I played on my drum, and I've learned something that I always wanted my music to be, and that is to be a prayer. Every night when I played, I prayed for my friend. And as such, I'd like to pray for Bill's spirit to dance.